So this is Nalaar, Chief Mechanic, probably my favorite commander from all of Aetherdrift, and today I'm going to try to convince you to build this commander. So Nalaar reads, whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get 2 energy. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, create an XX colorless vehicle artifact creature token named Nalaar Aetherjet with flying and crew 2, where X is the amount of energy spent this way. So in other words, at my end step, if I have 6 energy, I can remove the 6 energy to create an Aetherjet that gains the 6 energy. So this would become a 6/6 Aetherjet. Now we're just gonna get straight into the win condition so you know exactly how you're gonna win with this commander deck and why I think this commander is incredibly fun. Because while we're playing, we end up getting a ton of Aetherjets on the battlefield. When we end up creating a ton of thopters and servos, so at some point throughout the game we have a ton of artifacts in play, and because we have a ton of artifacts in play, we can take advantage of that with cards like Brotherhood Vertibird that enters the battlefield and has power equal to the amount of artifacts that we control. You know, the adaptive Omni tool, which came inside the same precon, gives you +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Master of Ethereum, which is outside of the precon, but the card that does the same exact thing with the artifacts. And the Nettlecyst does the same exact thing. So what we're looking for are cards, or we're going to notice, what you're going to notice when you're playing is that you have creatures that this becomes a 12/12. This will add 12 power. This would be a 12/12. And when we have creatures with this much power, we can play cards like a Mage Slayer that says whenever equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So basically what ends up happening is we go to combat, we attack with an Aetherjet that might be a 10/10, right? And then we equip it with the Omni tool that buffs its power by 12, so it's 22 power. And then we equip it with something like a Mage Slayer, which means that it deals 22 power on attacks. And then once it hits somebody, it deals 22 again, dealing 44 damage, knocking people out of the game. And we have cards like Soul's Fire inside here as well. And then a Heart Piercing Manticore. Not too many cards that help to deal extra damage similar to the Mage Slayer, just because on its own, between the Aetherjet and then these cards over here that double its power, among other cards that you're gonna see later, it tends to be enough damage. You know, we don't need to have too many win conditions inside the same deck. But in order to get this going is a bit of a process, and I say that, and I want to stress that a lot if you're planning on building this deck, because this deck requires a lot of different pieces in order for it to function. And the first week that I went out to go play this commander deck, I lost and I did nothing. And it was horrible because people would just cast spells, remove one piece from my board, and my entire game plan was basically ruined. So instead of playing a lot of removal inside the deck, which was what I think people normally do, I mean board wipes and stuff, I took those out and I added counter spells, because, or cards that help to protect our creatures. This is asceticism, gives our creatures hexproof. It's just a really easy way for us to be able to counter something, and that one counter, or giving our creatures hexproof, is everything when you're playing this deck, and helps you play a lot more freely, knowing that, like, okay, I can put all these pieces on the board and it's going to stay on the board safely because I have this counter spell inside my hand. Now, what we do in order to build our energy to make those giant Aetherjet tokens, we need to build up our energy. So our commander says, whenever one or more artifact creatures we control deal combat to a player, combat damage to a player, we get 2 energy. Now, when we're looking at this, right, we need creatures that are going to be evasive, and we have to deal damage to our opponents, and it doesn't matter how much damage we deal. And I think, like, the less amount of damage that we can deal to our opponents, the more advantageous, because it seems like, oh, like, I'm just taking 1 damage here, 1 damage there. It doesn't really matter. So what we're doing is building a lot of thopters, and thopters are great because thopters have flying. I love all the colors for all this too. All these thopter tokens. But we have an American thopter, we got an Asian thopter over here, and these thopters just deal 1 damage to our opponents, to each opponent, right? So when you're playing, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna do this evenly, guys, so that it's fair. That's what you're gonna say. I'm gonna hit you for 1, I'll hit you for 1, and then I'll hit you for 1. And then they'll be like, okay, I'll take 1 damage, it's fine. And then, unbeknownst to them, well, they definitely know that you're getting the energy counters, but you're just gonna build them up slowly. So we can make, you know, when I won the game that I won with this commander deck, I had a 6/6 Aether Jet that I won the game with using the combo that I'm gonna talk about later. But one 6/6 Aether Jet was enough power, or generated enough power amongst or combined with the other combos to win me the game. So, you know, just make sure that the larger this Aether Jet is, the more comfortable you're gonna be that you're gonna win. So if you need to save your energy for a 10/10 Aether Jet, you know, do that, because it only helps to accelerate, to make your Alpha Strike more intense. But we need thopters in order for this stuff to work. So we have these creatures over here that help us to create thopters. Whenever we're casting artifacts, we create thopters. Creatures that enter the battlefield and create thopters, which is amazing. Like, dude, like this card over here combined with the Whirler Rogue are probably some of the 2 best cards in the entire deck. I think Whirler Rogue is really the best card in the deck, because not only do we create 2 thopters, which is going to give us 4 energy as they attack, we can tap artifacts to give creatures unblockable. And not even, dude, not even our own creatures we give unblockable. We can give unblockable to our opponent's creatures, which puts us in a position where our opponents, you know, if we need to take somebody out of the game, we can help out our opponents, which is how I won the game that I won. But we also have creatures that give our artifact creatures haste, which is nice. The Thopter Engineer, Psy Master Thopter, which is great. We have a Sharding Sphinx that deals damage whenever artifact deals damage to a player. We create a 1/1 Thopter, which is super fun. So every time a Thopter deals damage to a player, we create more Thopters, and it just turns into this unstoppable Thopter New Jersey drone phenomena. We have also a Loyal Apprentice over here for 2 mana, creating Thopters as well with haste, which is cool. So at this point, you know, with these cards over here, your board will look something like this, and I'm visually showing you this so that you all get an understanding for what's going on. You'll have a ton of Thopters in play, you have Nalaar in play, and then you might have an Aether Jet. And you know, when we're talking about the Aether Jets, dude, make 1/1 Aether Jets if you can. Like if you have that 6 energy or something in your energy pool, it's okay for you to drop 1 to create a 1/1 Aether Jet, because A, that's an artifact creature that can deal damage to generate you more energy, and B, it adds to the amount of artifacts you have on the board so that the cards like this get buffed by 1. So you should never pass a turn without making an Aether Jet. I would say you're either making 1/1 Aether Jets, or at minimum 5/5, 6/6s, 10/10 Aether Jets to just curb stomp people. But your board's gonna look something like this, right? Now, the reason this is important, and you know, we need to draw cards when we play games, right? And when we're drawing cards inside this deck, or just in any deck in Magic the Gathering, really, we want the way we draw cards to synergize with what we were doing already. The first version of this deck, I had a ton of brainstorms, a ton of cards like Ponder, things like this to help me to draw, but casting instants and sorcery spells is not the most, it doesn't synergize super well with what we're doing, and it doesn't allow me to just like spend mana and flow with what's going on inside the deck. So when we draw cards, we're gonna play cards like the Bident of Thassa. So whenever creature we control does combat damage to a player, we draw a card. And mind you, we're dealing damage with these 1/1s, right? So take 1 damage, draw a card, and then create 2 energy. And what you're gonna notice over here is we have deal damage, draw a card, deal damage, draw a card, same thing, same thing. This also creates thopters, same thing, same thing, same thing, right? This is not the same thing. This says whenever creature you control deals damage, you know, we could exile the top card. I don't really care about that. We're choosing go target creature that player controls. And when we're doing this, we're not only dealing damage anyway with these, so you might as well just go to our opponent's creatures. And then some of my favorite things to do, we're gonna add Rage Reflection, and we added Berserker's Onslaught, which is gonna give our creatures double strike as they attack. So these 1/1s are now hitting twice, which means we now get to go 2 creatures, which means we also get to draw, you know, 2 cards, which I think is amazing, and it feels great. And while all that is happening, we're also doubling the amount of energy that we get. So instead of just getting 6 energy in 1 turn, dealing damage to our opponents, we would get 12 energy, which we could use to make a 12/12 Aetherjet, which is super fun when you get the ability to do that. But as we're drawing all these cards, you know, we're drawing into our counter spells and protection. We're drawing into our win conditions over here. We can make more thopters if we need to, but these are some cards that are just generically good inside the deck, and that I think if you were gonna build this, you may want to include. But honestly, like, as long as you get the general gist of like creating thopters, dealing damage with big creatures, or giving them a double strike and drawing cards, just this right here is enough to be able to have fun. You know, you don't have to go all out. But we have this Aether Flux Conduit. Says whenever we cast a spell, we get an amount of energy equal to the amount of mana spent to cast that spell, which is just, you know, we're making huge Aether Jets, guys. It's super fun. And then we have an Aetherwind Basker, enters or attacks. We're going to create energy for each creature we control. Mind you, look at the board state that we have. You know, this is what your board will look like, right? Actually, it'll look like this, because everything would have attacked and everything would just be tapped. You know, this is what your board will look like, and then Pia will just be sitting there like that. And then we have the Aethertide Whale. I just think 6 mana, you know, to just put a 6 power creature in play that's flying, that has evasion, and then gives us 6 energy counters. We can just like play the Aethertide Whale, you know, go to our end step with Pia. Let's say we dealt 2 damage with two different thopters. We get 4 energy. Same turn with Aethertide Whale. That means we create a 10/10 on the next turn. It's a nice bump. We also have a Bespoke Battle Wagon. It's a nice card to play early in the game. I could use this to tap a creature so that we can deal damage with our creatures over here. Technically kind of making something unblockable. We can draw, but I think most importantly, we get to create those 2 energy counters, which I think is nice. We have a Mobilizer mech. So whenever this becomes crewed, another vehicle we control becomes crewed. And, you know, it's flying, so it has that evasion. It's going to give us the energy and draw us cards to the other cards. But it's just nice to crew a vehicle twice, technically. We have a Greater Good as well. So if somebody targets removal on our giant creatures with a ton of power, we can just sack them and draw a ton of cards. Dude, the Harvest Season is low-key just like a 3 mana absolute bomb inside this deck. Because, look, this says, search your library for X basic land cards where X is the number of tapped creatures you control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for 7 mana, for 3 mana, in this instance, in this imagination that we just imagined, we're gonna create 3 or 7. Oh my god, I can't remember. We're gonna get 7 basic lands into play, which feels super good, and it's just great, guys. It's just fun. And then we have the last card is a Cyberman Squadron. It says non-legendary artifact creatures you control have Myriad. So yeah, so that one thopter token you're attacking with turns into a lot more thopters attacking each opponent, and non-legendary artifacts. So when we have our 10/10 Aetherjet, we get to then create a ton of other. It just really helps to just spread out all the damage and make sure everybody's losing life equally. So it just makes things fair, and it's 7 mana. So I mean, you know, that's a lot of mana, but it's still fun to see until somebody uses Path to Exile. And that's pretty much Pia Nalaar. So go in the comment section below and let me know if you're thinking about building this commander deck at some point during your life. Also keep in mind that the entire deck list is in the description below. And I also want to let you know that I'm going to be going live on Twitch, building commander decks, playing games against viewers, hanging out with other Magic the Gathering YouTubers, playing games of Commander, talking and having fun. So if you want to join me while I'm live on Twitch, the link to my Twitch account is in the description below. We got about 50 followers on Twitch, so it's not zero. So we got a good amount of people that would join just to hang out and help everyone to build commander decks. I mean, when we go live, I'll tell you all right now, actually, that I have this Kotori Pilot Prodigy commander deck over here. This is from the pre-con a long time ago. That this deck just does not work for me. So I need to figure out a way to make this deck function a bit better. So we're going to be going live building this commander deck over there. Link to the Twitch is in the description below. The deck list again for Pia Nalaar is in the description below, so you guys can take a look at that. Thank you for your time. Always remember, everybody, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And most importantly, you guys got to remember to believe in yourself. All right, peace out, people.